In Wicca, we have 8 Sabbats, and I've been asked to do a video on how to remember the Sabbats because they can be a little confusing because we do tend to change them around depending on what hemisphere you live in, and there are 8 of them, and the names of a lot of them are also in old Gaelic language, so they can be a bit tricky. I'm not going to talk about what each individual Sabbat is. I'm just going to talk about how you can remember them and the tricks that you can use to connect you more with the Sabbats when they come up. But before I do that, hi, I'm Sandra from MysteryWitchSchool.com. If you're new to the channel and you want to learn more about Wicca and witchcraft, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss any videos. And if you do want to pace yourself with your learning, so that includes learning the Sabbats, then do download my free video, How to Start Your Witchcraft Practice. It just gives you a guide as to how you can pace yourself with your learning to get more out of your practice if you're teaching yourself and learning from books and videos and that sort of thing. The link to that is in the description field below this video. I have done videos on Facebook about the Sabbats, so if you want to go over to the Facebook page, which is also in the description field below this video, you'll find that there are videos on most of the Sabbats. I don't know if I've done all of them, but there are videos there on most of the Sabbats. So as I said at the beginning, they are celebrations, so they're times to be joyous and celebrate the seasons. They're a way of us connecting to the changes of life, essentially. The ups and downs, because nature has her ups and downs as well. And they're solar festivals, so they're connected to the sun. And from an earth-centric point of view, the way the sun is moving around, basically across the sky, its positioning as that changes throughout the year, and how that affects the land. And for those of you who may be still living off the land, if you've lived on farms, if you're really connected to the land, you'll notice that some things grow better at some times of the year than they do in others. For us in the city, when we can generally get access to things most of the year, we tend to lose track and connection to these seasons. And these celebrations, these Sabbats, are a good way to bring us back to grounding in the earth and realize that there are times when certain things grow, and there are places where certain things grow, and there are others where there is nothing at all. And if you're not prepared for those scarce times, then you basically would end up starving. So it's a way of connecting to the earth and also learning how to take care of our own lives in a similar kind of way. It's about understanding that sometimes we do have to gather in order to be able to have things that can last during the times when we don't have, and understanding the ups and downs of life, and that life isn't a continuous joyous thing all of the time. There are times when we have some really hard times, and that's reflected in nature as well, because she certainly has her hard times too. It helps us appreciate the good times, and it helps us understand not to get too caught up in feeling sorry for ourselves when we go through the bad times. So they're really good opportunities, these Sabbats, to just reflect on life in general. But they can be a bit tricky for people to remember, because we follow the seasons of the earth, and we're also following, from an earth-centric point of view, how the sun appears to travel across the sky. We know scientifically that actually we're the ones doing the traveling around the sun, but we like to talk about it from an earth-centric point of view. In the northern hemisphere, the sun travels towards the south, so it goes from the east towards the south towards the west. In the southern hemisphere, the sun is doing the opposite. It's going from the east, traveling to the north, and traveling to the west. So we get a much weaker sun in June and July than people in the northern hemisphere do, because in the northern hemisphere you'll be having a really strong sun's going to be right up above you, and it's going to be really strong, where for us in the southern hemisphere it's halfway between being right up in the top of the sky and the horizon, so it's much weaker. So we have opposite, our Sabbats are opposite basically, and we celebrate them at different times of the year, so it can get tricky. So knowing where you are in the world will help you know which side of the equator you're on, will help you know which wheel to follow. Now we call it the wheel of the year because it keeps cycling around and round and round and round. So think of it as a wheel, think of it as a circle. And there's different ways that you can start to connect to the Sabbats and remember the Sabbats. Now the easiest way is to grab yourself a diary that somebody has already put together or one that you make up yourself. There are diaries out there on the market that have they're for the Northern Hemisphere, and they'll also have ones for the Southern Hemisphere. There's a few of them out there on the market at the moment, and they will have the wheel of the year and all of the different things going on according to which hemisphere you belong in. There's a colouring book, I can't remember who the author is on that, and there's others as well. So grab yourself a diary, go into a bookstore or go online and have a look for some witchcraft diaries or Wiccan diaries, and just make sure that if you're in the Southern Hemisphere that you get one for the Southern Hemisphere. There's a lot more out there for the Northern Hemisphere than there is for the Southern Hemisphere, so you may find that in the Southern Hemisphere you're a little bit limited. And if you do want to know some of the diaries, just let me know in the comments, and I'll pop the references to those in the comments field if you're looking for one for the Southern Hemisphere. So if you've got a diary, it's already going to be in the diary when the Sabbats are. And also these diaries have a little bit of something written up and little themes, pictures and artwork that can help you connect to the Sabbat as well. So that's kind of a very easy way to remember the Sabbats, because you've got your diary there, you're looking at it every day or every week, and so you can see when things are coming up for you, and you can also learn a little bit about the Sabbats from these diaries as well, because they do go into a little bit of stuff about what the Sabbats are, and may even give you some things that you can do for that time of the year as well. There's some diaries that have spells in them, there's some diaries that just have maybe stories or activities in them, so definitely have a look in the bookstores online for those diaries. Other ways of doing it is if you do a daily practice of meditation every day, you can change the direction that you sit in according to the time of the year. Now I used to do this. I don't do it anymore, but I used to do this quite a few years ago. If it was the spring equinox, for example, the spring is usually associated with the east. So I would face east, and then from spring equinox through to Beltane, I would be facing east. Then at Beltane, I would turn and face, because I'm in the Southern Hemisphere, I would be facing northeast until the summer solstice, and then on the summer solstice, I would start doing my meditation and my daily practice facing north. Now, if you're, of course, in the Northern Hemisphere, you would be doing the opposite. So that's how I did it. I rotated myself around my circle in order to connect with the energy of the seasons. And it's a good thing to do, even if you just do it for 1 year. It helps you remember your Sabbats, and it helps you also connect with the directions and the sun, particularly if you're doing it outdoors, where you can actually physically are getting involved in the changes of the year. So that's a fun way to do it physically. Other ways to do it is to have coloured candles for different Sabbats. I like to have, for example, so for summer, I like to have those sort of cool colours, because even though it's a hot season, I always found that for me, I relate the ocean to the summer. I live near the ocean, so for me, summer is always about the ocean. So I always use a blue candle for the summer solstice. Traditionally, of course, you could use one of the warm colours like your reds and your oranges for the solstice, summer solstice, but I like to use blue. So you may have colours that you want to pick out. Traditionally, for the autumn equinox, it is red, and for Samhain, it's orange. So you can pick different colours for the different times of year and have your candles there all lined up, ready to go for the next Sabbat, and use them for your altar candle or your candle that you use when you're meditating. and use your candles that way. You can make up altar cloths of various different colors and different designs that symbolize the Sabbats. So that's something that you can do to help you remember the Sabbats as well. If you're getting involved in doing artwork for the different Sabbats, you're going to be really connecting to those Sabbats then, and it's going to be difficult to forget what a Sabbat's about, or even when it's going to happen, if you're involved in actually creating something for it. And you can do this throughout the year. Have them there all piled up in order so that you know which ones are next, and then change your altar cloth for the duration of that 6-week period in between Sabbats. It's a fun thing to do, and I've done that. That's something that I did way back in my early days of practicing the craft. I did up different altar cloths and I put them on at the Sabbats and left them there until the next Sabbat, along with the candles. Other things that you can do is have your own wheel of the year. So you can probably buy them. This is one of my old Book of Shadows. This is the wheel of the year that I did up back right at my very, very beginning. And I had this at the beginning of my Book of Shadows, and I coloured it in with the colours representing the Sabbats to me. This is for the Southern Hemisphere, by the way. And use this as a way to connect to the Sabbats. And what you can do with a wheel like this, particularly if it's a big one, so maybe you want to have like an A3 size paper or even a bigger poster paper, you can, in these sort of little wedges here, you can write in keywords that represent what the Sabbat is about. You could put the deities in here, you can put the themes of the Sabbat in there, things that can just help you remember what the Sabbat is. You can put the dates around the wheel just to help you remember what the Sabbats are. And in creating one of these, again, when you're creating something, you're connecting to it, you're getting it into your subconscious mind, you're getting it into your memory, and it's going to be so much easier for you to remember the Sabbats when you've got something here you've already put a lot of time and energy into creating and researched and put it all there, and there it is, good to go for the rest of your witchy life. You only need to do it once. You can put it in a book like that, put it in your Book of Shadows, or put it up in poster form. It's a really good way to help remember the Sabbats and to connect with them as well. Like anything that you need to learn, you have to put some effort into learning. Unfortunately, self-discipline is really important on this path. You cannot be a witch and be good at your craft and not have self-discipline. It's just something you need in life. So if you've got the rebellious teenager in you, which a lot of us have, that rebellious teenager, your inner rebellious teenager, is going to probably rebel against doing a lot of this sort of disciplinary stuff. But you're going to have to find a way to reconcile with that inner teenager, because the need to actually sit down and apply yourself to this stuff is critically important. And I don't care what anyone says, it's really the only way to get ahead with anything. So by giving yourself some time to do something creative, and even if you don't think you're a particularly creative person or you're not that great at visual art, you don't have to be spectacular in your artwork. You can be really, really simple and structured and just use some colored pencils and do something that will help you remember and get involved in learning. Because the more creative you are with something and the more physical you are with doing things, the more your subconscious mind is going to remember what things are, and you don't have to then think about it, you just know it. Other things that you can do with the wheel that I've written down here is prompts. Yeah, having prompts on there too. Whatever you can fit in there to help jog your memory when you're writing in the prompts in each segment of the wheel will really help you remembering what the Sabbats are. And another way to really connect with the Sabbats, which is the whole kind of point of having the Sabbats in the first place, is actually observing nature around where you live. Now, the closer to the equator you are, the less you're going to see of the seasonal changes. You're not going to have a winter if you're living close to the equator. You're probably just going to have a wet season and a dry season. It's not going to be something that's obvious, whereas if you live further towards the poles, you're going to see the 4 seasons. You're going to see autumn when all of the leaves fall off the trees, and winter where you've got so many deciduous trees that you can't see anything green at all. It's just white with snow. The closer to the equator you get, of course, the more evergreens you're going to get. There's going to be no snow, and it's going to be a very, very different experience of winter. So take note of where you live and what's going on around you, and adjust the seasonal Sabbats to incorporate where you live, because this is an earth-based spirituality. So wherever you are, then adjust these things. You don't have to go out and think about snow and all of those sorts of really cold things if you live, in the tropics, because you're not going to get the snow there. The tropics in winter is generally very mild. It's generally actually really pleasant being in winter in the tropics. So it's just, it's drier, doesn't rain as much. Always incorporate where you live with where you are as well, and change things about the Sabbats according to where you live. So be creative and have fun with that. And just observe the way nature changes throughout the year. What do you see at the different times of year when the Sabbats occur? So what do you see at Yule, which is midwinter, the winter solstice? And then by the time you get to Imbolc, which is the next Sabbat after that, how are you seeing, is the snow starting to melt a little bit? Is there stuff that you're seeing that's hinting to you that spring is on the way? Then you get to your spring equinox. What's going on there? How is spring different to winter? And then, of course, leading into Beltane, where it's starting to warm up, the sun's starting to get higher in the sky, you're starting to see a lot of the offspring of the animals, and a lot more life is coming. Basically, things are coming to life. Even in the subtropics where I live, where we don't get any snow and we don't really have a winter, life still starts at spring. Like, we still see the animals doing their reproduction around, spring through to Beltane and then the heat of summer. So those things are still going on, even if you're not experiencing a winter. So observe nature. Have a diary, have your journal there, and write down when it comes to each Sabbat, or even just writing down every day, when you notice the seasons change where you are, then write it down, write what you're seeing, and then go to your diary or go to your wheel that you've drawn up and just check and see which Sabbat's next on the list, and connect that way. It's about putting in an effort, basically, and doing a little bit of research, and also doing some experimenting with your creativity and having fun with it, because spirituality is meant to be fun. It really is. It's meant to be a path of joy. It's meant to be a path with heart. It's not meant to be something that's going to make you feel bad about yourself. It's not meant to be something that is there to be a burden to you. It's not something where you need to be constantly sacrificing. It's meant to be joyous. There is certainly discipline in that, which also comes with sacrificing time and effort, but it is certainly well worth it when you start to get the results. And that's something that, well, it's one of the reasons why I put the course together, the Mystery Witch School 101 Academy course together, because a lot of people need help with being able to structure their learning. And I do put quite a bit of emphasis on the Sabbats in the course, and how you can connect to the deities, the different ways of connecting to the deities, and how you can make the Sabbat your own, and working with the Sabbats in the way that can bring meaning into your life and connection at the same time. So if you want to check that course out, the link to that is in the description field below this video as well. If you like the video, hit the like button, share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm Sandra from Mystery Witch School, and I'll see you at the next video. Blessed be.